introduction. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Chris invited me to come along and said I'd love to talk to you guys. As CTO for Cisco in the UK and Ireland, my role is to represent all of Cisco's technology to everybody, be that governments, customers, partners, analysts. So today I could have been talking to you about any subject, cybersecurity, the Internet of Things, but today it's about hybrid cloud. So prior to work, I gained this PhD in cryptography from London, and my claim to fame is that Dan Brown based Sophie and the Da Vinci Code on me. I mean, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I've had lots of lunches based on that, because Sophie came from Royal Holloway College, and that's where I came from, so I eat out on that a lot. But that's enough about me. Hybrid cloud. In my opinion, yes, every institution needs a hybrid cloud strategy, but then you would expect me to say that because I'm talking about it. But the world is changing, as we've already heard, and the pace of change, acceleration of that technology is astounding. You know, the institute that I went to university has changed beyond all recognition now. Even the company, Cisco, that I joined 3 years ago, has changed beyond all recognition. And so the only constant is change, and IT must actually be in the driving seat to respond to that change. Let's run the video. So that's just hopefully a snapshot of some of the changes that are coming. But it is accelerating, and it's affecting every single business. This gives you a feel for some of the technology changes at the bottom. So the mobile, the cloud, the Internet of Things, that's when sensors are on everything in the whole world. At the moment, only 2% of the world is connected. It's estimated by 2020 there'll be 50 billion things connected to the Internet. Good job we've got IPv version 6 out there, otherwise we won't be able to address them all. And that's going to imply this huge drive towards apps. So applications are the things that are actually driving the economy going forward. And when all this information is coming from these sensors, my goodness, the value is going to come from your ability to analyze that data and make business decisions on what you're seeing. So some of the that film clip talked about the amount of data, and I've got some brilliant statistics here, if people like numbers. The global IP traffic is expected to reach 132 exabytes per month by 2018, which is the equivalent to, I love this, 5.5 billion people binge watching on Game of Thrones Season 4 via video on demand in HD. That's a lot of binge watching happening. I won't be joining you, unfortunately. But so as I was saying, these application focus is really transforming businesses. And we've seen it right across the thing. So some of these examples you're very familiar with. The retail business is totally disrupted by Amazon coming online and changing the way that people buy books. In the US, the number of physical retail bookshops has halved in a matter of years. Transport, very famous example of Uber. They don't own any taxis. They don't employ drivers, but my goodness, they are making a lot of money. And I always this is used a lot in terms of the effect of digitization. Uber themselves aren't also standing still. I just noticed the other day they've now got Bitcoin as one of the options to pay them. So they're also progressing in terms of their statements. Music, we're aware of Spotify disrupting streaming music, so HMV is no longer there. Point of sale and advertising, we're very familiar that Google's out there. Education, the impact of virtual learning environments in terms of what that means for your client base. But the world is changing, so how is that affecting education? I think even there, students are wanting different things. The whole idea of mobility and location independence. They want to bring their own devices to study on. You know, they don't want anything provided for them. They want whatever they're using at home to be the thing that they use. Video and content, in terms of the intensity of the amount of data that they want to stream, is going to go up. And obviously we need to ensure that our students and our population on our campuses we know who they are and they're secure in that environment. This all points to there are going to be new ways to use and source IT in your establishments. These are areas where Cisco is focusing our development and go-to-market. But how should education respond to this huge amount of change which is coming in terms of technology? Well, the first thing to point out is something I'm sure you're all very, very aware of, that the education institution is actually a business. As with any modern business, it needs technology. And business in turns, but we're finding that the businesses we'll deal with, it's a blurred line between their business strategy and their technology or digital strategy. It's actually one and the same. You drive it from a business strategy and your IT strategy comes from the bottom of that. I alluded to the fact that Cisco's changed since I joined, and after 20 years we've just had a change of person at the top. So our CEO, John Chambers, has become the chairman, and we have a new CEO called Chuck Robbins. And this is a recent quote that he's put forward, which I'd like to share with you. Each customer faces a fundamental decision. Will technology simply enable, potentially differentiate, or fundamentally define their business strategy? So there's this real blurring of lines in terms of what is actually going to be driving businesses and how, in this very rapidly moving world, how do you differentiate yourself from others in this space? So, I mean, key strategies that your institution might be thinking about is things like research, corporate social responsibility, business efficiency, community engagement. I don't know how many of those are business drivers for your institution, but those business drivers should then influence what you respond to as an IT or digital strategy. So there are multiple business demands to meet, and the IT team has to try and support all of them. But ultimately, I'm trying to encourage customers that I deal with and yourselves. We need to move closer to those business users. We can't be this ivory tower dictating how things should be done. We should be moving closer to the business to find out, okay, what are we trying to achieve as this business in terms of revenue, and how can I help? Can I share with you some insights that I found out from talking to some of the CIOs that I talk to? IT gets a bad rap. Sorry. Traditional IT is really struggling to retain that relevance to their customer base. They're told that they're being too slow, unresponsive, stuck in silos, these fiefdoms, so it's not very nice reading. And sometimes they're actually seen as opposition to what the business are trying to do. And if the innovation isn't coming from the IT department, then people are going around IT And this is the whole area of what's called shadow IT or shadow cloud, where people can actually, they can get the applications, they can download them from the websites, they can actually use an Amazon Web Service just themselves, spin it up when they want it. And for me, this is a survey that Cisco put forward, and I find the last one quite scary. 93% of cloud access is unknown to IT. There is a lot of it going on, and people aren't aware of that. I'm not here to plug Cisco, but we do provide a service which will help you find out how much cloud shadow IT situations. So go and talk to our people on stand, they'll help you with that. But this was done in October 2014. I'm sure it's worse since then in terms of that number. So is shadow IT so bad? It really depends on your perspective. In other words, IT is about risk security, solid, dependable. Business wants to go, I want to do it quickly, I want to innovate, I want to try this. They're like little energy bunnies, I call them, bouncing around, they want to do something new. So I think the IT role in this cloud arena really does have to change. Now, CEOs that I talk to are a bit worried how to get this balance, this schizophrenia, that I call it. How many of these concerns do you in the audience share? What should I outsource? What should I insource? How do I serve this growing business? Which new skills do I need? And this is the next set of questions that I was hearing. Which IT processes must be matured and digitised? How do I evolve the financial model from CapEx to OpEx? Would pay-per-drink work in my organisation? How can I blend public and private IT services? So a whole bunch of questions, a whole set of things which the IT infrastructure group has to think about and try and solve. So what this means for IT groups, it actually means we need to try and reinvent ourselves. We need to try and do something different, staying ahead of the curve. I think the IT role has to become more, and this is actually Gartner saying this as well, the IT role has to become more of an orchestrator. You're a broker. You're a broker of services to your population. So you as a orchestrator need to work out which of this is sensitive and needs to be controlled, which of this actually I can be a lot more free about the way that I orchestrate things. So ultimately, we're trying to work out, how do I run my IT shop as a business? This is the way we need to begin to think. We need to think more about business outcomes. What business outcomes do I need to think about to ensure that the way I behave actually delivers something to this institution that I'm involved with, which actually is a revenue-generating business? So you need to do a shift from focusing internally to this external focus in terms of reaching out to your customer base. So how do you grow your business? How do you implement processes and solutions that address our institution's business strategy and support the business transformation, whatever that is in your particular institution? How do I streamline my operations to improve the quality and availability of those IT services, all the while keeping those costs low? How do I accelerate that innovation that's so required when I'm under such tight budgetary requirements? How do I improve security in the area when everyone's bringing in their mobile devices? How do I meet the compliance needs of that security? And with the student experience, how do I support the needs of multiple users, the academic staff, students, researchers, employees? So the opportunity lies in finding ways to disrupt. We talk about this whole digitisation is all about disrupt or be disrupted. We ran a survey at Cisco called the Digital Vortex. It's a really interesting paper. Cisco didn't write it, someone else did, an academic company wrote it. And it's talking about 4 out of the 10 top incumbents won't be here in 5 years due to not responding quickly enough to the digitisation that's happening in the industry. And you wonder, will that be the same for some of our institutions in this room? In other words, we need to enable people to move quicker in this changing world. So how do we balance the day job? Sorry, I've gone the wrong way. Just making sure I'm right. So we need this broad perspective. We need to go from just thinking about the data centre. We need to bring it out in terms of the cloud support. And then we need to make sure we are thinking about this edge, this Internet of Things. What could we do in a university situation if something new was added to the Internet? Because, quite frankly, this is where the Ubers of this world are focusing. They're actually focusing right at the edge where the end users are, creating the applications that feel good and deliver a business response. But at the time, this needs to be supported by incredibly good security right across this complete frame. But that we have a need to, within this picture, to support the traditional. You're always going to need to support these traditional applications. At the same time, you also need to support this new world, the cloud native, the DevOps situation, built on Docker, agile turnaround. All of this new stuff you need to support at the same time. So, how do you get this balance between these two things? You need to be schizophrenic. So how many of you are a bit schizophrenic out here? It's this when you're confronted with digital transformation, how do you get this balance between risk and moving quickly? And actually there are two symptoms coming through here. You've got one side, the IT world, which is all about efficiency, risk, cost reduction, processes. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that. On the other hand, you also need to give them speed. So this is where the open source is, microservices, in terms of architectures. You need to balance the two. And Gartner themselves have called this hybrid, bimodal IT. So this idea, how do you run existing IT more efficiently and safely, while at the same time enabling your business customers to innovate and differentiate at an even quicker space. And so this is what they call about bimodal IT, this idea that you have this traditional system which is all about systems of record, and in the other world you have the DevOps world, which is coming very much in terms of innovating. So how do you, as an organisation, try and get that balance? What about hybrid? That's what we're here to talk about. This keynote's talking about creating a hybrid strategy, and I just love this graphic because for me it describes the situation. So I thought if I went through this, we can make sure we're all agreed as to what hybrid means. Okay. So why hybrid? On one side, you'd love to use provider clouds because that gives you this ability to be quick, to maybe get some economies of scale and respond quickly to what someone wants to do. But at the same time, you've also got these private clouds, which gives you the control, the security over that data that application is using, the data sovereignty issues that you have, the IPR issues that you might have. So ultimately, what we're trying to do, do you like that? Oh, I like that, is produce hybrid clouds which strikes the balance between these two worlds, which gives you the ability to do fixed workloads, at the same time elastic workloads, and ultimately giving people the choice to build or to rent in terms of their solutions. That's ultimately what we're trying to get to. I'll let someone take a picture, because I like this one. So remembering that our institutions are business institutions, what are the business executives that we talk to within Cisco saying at the moment about hybrid cloud? They see real value in both public and private clouds for the reasons we've just touched on that previous slide. Businesses do need both of these things. There are real business reasons why a business needs both of these different styles of computing, which means they need hybrid clouds. So in a recent survey that we did, 58% respondents were trying to already use both, and 78 had a hybrid cloud strategy. Can we have hands up in the room? Who's got a hybrid cloud strategy? Don't be shy. So at the end of this talk, these are the people you need to go and talk to. try and introduce you to everyone else. So, the industry, external here, is also driving towards hybrid cloud, and in fact people are seeing it's a key piece in the armoury for how we respond to these changing dynamics. So what benefits will this hybrid cloud deliver in industry? So hopefully you've seen that implementing hybrid cloud is non-optional. Correct statement? Nodding your heads? Yes. Yes, Alison. Thank you. So IT strategy must include the hybrid cloud because it will deliver these benefits to business. So let's look at them. It will give flexibility, and quite frankly businesses want that because sometimes they don't really know what they want to do. So they want the flexibility to be able to try that. Actually, that didn't work. I want to try something else instead. So when you have a hybrid cloud, you can actually maximise the choice in terms of the options that you provide somebody. So when a hybrid cloud is implemented properly, it will allow services to move freely between the clouds. Okay? And that actually will require a consistent approach to both your security and your network policies to allow that to happen if you'd like to move applications between clouds. Again, when it's implemented correctly, it's going to be really easy to operate and control the workloads regardless of where they're running, if they're running in private or public. Ultimately, you'd like to have a strategy to allow you to control them easily. So those are some of the business benefits that it will give you, but let's not enter this space without thinking about the challenges, because there are some. There are certain things which we need to be aware of which actually should form the basis of your hybrid cloud strategy. I'm just going to go back. Okay. So this idea of managing compliance and security across different clouds, I don't know if anyone's tried it, it's difficult. It's incredibly difficult to do that without some help. And I encourage people to actually look at, double check that the security and network policies move with the workloads. In other words, if you're moving something from a private cloud, it's got particular policies associated with it. When you move it to somewhere else, does that go with the workload? So at a high level, personally I think that there are kind of like these three challenges. So security models are very inconsistent between the clouds. You'll have one cloud provider implementing security in an individual way. Clouds themselves have inconsistent architectures, so when you're trying to move things between clouds, you need to be aware of that and handle that. And quite often, the application is actually being coded in a particular way, which makes it hard to move it between clouds. So that you also need to be aware of, sensitive to. Now, you wouldn't expect me to stand up here without telling you a little bit about how Cisco can help. So this is not really a sales pitch. This is a mini highlight of what we could do for you. But Cisco itself is challenging itself internally. So we do a lot of eat your own dog food in terms of what we do internally in our company. Our CIO, who is now actually our Chief Operating Officer, Jacoby, she was a fantastic CIO. She managed to improve the business by having 5% cuts in her budget continuously over 5 years. I know some of you probably know the worst cuts than that, but she was able to continue to invest in the infrastructure and deliver hybrid cloud, deliver mobile applications that the employees can use, and actually change our IT infrastructure internally. So we've got quite a lot of good stories which we use in terms of what we've done as a company to try and digitise ourselves before we sell it to our customers. So we are actively trying to address the hybrid challenge for ourselves. How are we doing this? So let's step back. Let's step back in time. Think back in the day when the internet was just starting. How many of you were here around then? Okay. And it was just beginning to formulate. The internet was a result of these isolated IP networks from universities around the world coming together and defining how things were going to interoperate. You also have the PC LAN world as well, which is its own set of networks. Do you look back on that on fond times, dealing with that complexity? No. So Cisco worked with standards bodies and helped them create the IP-based approach to the problem, and together we created the internet. So we used this common set of languages and protocols that allowed us to deal with the routing between these different providers and deal with the routing between the LANs. So actually we've seen this before. We're doing the same thing with something we're calling the intercloud. Today we've got this world of, quite frankly, quite isolated clouds, all with their own proprietary interfaces, custom-built infrastructures, and Cisco are working with standards bodies to try and harmonise this, to deliver an architecture that will actually scale to the World Wide Web. This time it's going to be API-driven, built on open standards, and leveraging the standards bodies. And so it will be secure and able to embrace this world of hybrid clouds. So Cisco's seen this kind of thing before. We know how to drive standards, and we know how to collaborate, quite frankly, with partners, because there's no way Cisco can do this on their own. We need to collaborate with other partners to deliver this. So as the Internet of Everything grows, so this is where you get the combination of sensors, emitting data, which work with people and processes to change something in the world. That's the Internet of Everything. We are focused on trying to build a broad cloud strategy in terms of both scale and breadth of offerings. So for the enterprise clouds, we're able to deliver enterprise workloads, so using Hadoop and Big Data HANA on our enterprise private clouds. At the same time, our partners, we've got a large partner organisation, they are doing amazing things. So we've got 3 million hosted collaboration services seats, and we're investing in infrastructure as service and platform as a service through our partners. And we're building more partner clouds as time goes on. We've got our own Cisco services and applications, so we're actually putting the applications that we have and delivering them as cloud-based services. And then ultimately, we're also then working with, through something which we call Intercloud Fabric. It's this way to move workloads. So be that in Azure, Amazon or Google, you can move your workload between these clouds. So that's the Cisco way where we're trying to deal with hybrid. And in one slide, this intercloud will actually provide customers with choice, compliance, and control. Quite frankly, that's what we need when we're talking about hybrid clouds. So choice helps you to obviously accelerate your time to market when you're trying to do something innovative. Compliance helps you to minimize these point-to-point relationships and actually get the best out of these relationships that you've got. And control helps you to get this service catalogue. Ultimately, we want to be a service broker, so we'd love to produce a service catalogue for our users in terms of how we get those services in every single location. So Cisco's strategy is and always has been around partners. We believe a lot in working closely with partners to deliver something amazing, but it also gives our customers more flexibility and choice, which is ultimately what we're trying to get to with hybrid cloud. So as it does in the data center, in the cloud world, the choice expands tremendously. Now this is the next chart, I warn you, is a bit of an eye chart. I don't expect you to read it. I won't test you on it later. But it just gives you the wealth of partners that we're working in. So we have partners in terms of business applications, in big data, analytics, Internet of Things, working with Rockwell Automation and actually getting out to the manufacturing plants to automate manufacturing. In the DevOps and cloud world, so hopefully you see a lot of the traditional partners that you'd want to work with if you're in the DevOps world. And that's underlined by a huge number of data center partners and a huge number of intercloud partners. So partners are very important, and I just thought I'd mention here that we just announced our latest partnership with Apple. We had a sales conference the other week, and they suddenly announced, and here comes Tim Cook. I'm thinking, who? And oh, Tim. So he actually came on stage at the Cisco event announcing that Cisco and Apple are working closer in terms of making Apple products easier to use in an enterprise. So that's something that we're jointly working on in terms of building up the partnerships. So this huge partner ecosystem allows customers to deploy or consume applications and data from the cloud while also moving those applications between private and public. So it's really hybrid cloud in action. So in conclusion, because I need a coffee, I don't know how we're doing for time, but I'm always one for coffee. I've outlined the pace of change, and quite frankly, that is just going to keep coming. I'm preparing another presentation about digitization. I just think I'll share this with you. Have you heard of the Henna Hotel in Japan? It opened its door in July, and it's the first hotel totally run by robots. So you check in to a desk with a robot. Actually, if you're English, you have to check in with a dinosaur, because the robot human doesn't speak English. The dinosaur does, which I think was quite amusing. Then they take facial recognition as you check in. As you go to your room, there is this robot that takes your case, and as you walk along, there's an iPad which explains your hotel as you're walking to your room, and it will guide you to your room. You get to your room, it scans your face, you don't need a key, it lets you in your room. And the thing that I found really funny, in the room, there was this tiny little, very cute, pink-looking robot, which is how you controlled your room and anything that you desired in your room. I'll leave that to your imagination. So, when we try and talk about the pace of change, we see Humans, the television programme, we think, that's miles away. But no, actually, you could check into that hotel in July. So, even though we're talking about pace of change in terms of sensors, it's just going to get quicker. And so, as organisations, we need to help the people that we deal with respond to that change and actually help them think more about what do they want to do with their business, rather than worrying about an infrastructure to help them deliver that. So worrying about the infrastructure is your job, but you need to work with the business in terms of align where they want to go and deliver a strategy to help them deliver that business benefit. So with your hybrid cloud strategy in place, hopefully you'll be able to start digitising your institution and maybe building what I call maybe the next generation education campus. I hope this keynote has signalled a change in Cisco and what we talk about, what makes us tick. We're very passionate about education. Chris is on this seat down here, and there's a team waiting to talk to you outside. I do encourage you to go along and get your stamp for your prize. There's some great stuff that we can do to help you in terms of work on your strategies. And remember, with hybrid cloud, you can truly drive differentiation for your business in this rapidly changing world. Thank you again for listening.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you very much for that. Quite a thought-provoking presentation, I thought. Hopefully the rest of you know, like me, writing down notes about lots of different things that you saw. We have got some time for Q&A, and Alison's quite happy to take some questions. Anybody on the floor like to ask a question? We've got some roving mics, I think, so we can hear you speaking. Question here. If you wait for the mic, then.
So, one of your slides showed how we could have consistency and control across those clouds. I'm not quite sure how we could have inferred the second part from what you said. So, maybe just elaborate on that.
In terms of control?
Yeah.
So, have you heard of software-defined networking? Yes. So it's based around that concept that you can actually create software-defined controls, which then move with your software.
Any further questions? One of the things that struck me is the complexity that we as in our institutions have to deal with. Pace of change, absolutely, without any question. The fact that things are changing, and absolutely, in our environment. But are we equipped to change?
how can Cisco help us as an organisation working in the sector? How can you help us to equip us for those sorts of change around some of the things that you described?
If I could just do the easy answer, go visit the stand. That's a bit of a cop-out. You know, we work closely with, you talk about collaboration, we work closely with many universities, and so we are probably having conversations with universities trying to solve some of the problems that you are trying to solve. So you know, we more likely have seen what you're coping with before, and hopefully that will help us to come up with a solution in terms of helping you move forward. But Cisco ourselves, we spend a lot of time looking at the trends. So I didn't touch it at all on the Cisco technology trends. So physically we have a bunch of people who do nothing else but look at all the research that's happening across the globe, look at what the startups and what's coming, to help us as a technology company anticipate what's coming. So then when we have these conversations with you, we're not only just talking about problems that we've seen other universities cope with, we can actually help you also to think about what actually will be coming next over and above what you're facing now.
Any further questions?
Thank you. Alison, I'm just interested, I mean, if cloud is the answer, and I'm kind of brought into that concept, I'm just wondering what you think are the major barriers to getting institutions, organisations generally, to kind of take up the offer of help, and what you see are the kind of biggest challenges from stopping people just jumping into this kind of thing first, if you like?
For me, let me be open with you. I've been in the role 6 months, so my exposure to how the universities are reacting to the space is limited. Chris would probably be able to give a better feel for that. Because, quite frankly, in the other industries I have been exposed with, it's the alternative problem. The user base is using it anyway, and just not going through the IT department. So the demand and drive is coming from the users, and the IT teams aren't catching up. So I've not heard the opposite view. Is that a common view that people are struggling with?
I think what you just described is consistent in many of our institutions, but is different in some of them.
Okay.
So we do have a lot of shadow IT. I think we're quite lucky in my institution. It's not as prevalent as it is in other institutions. I think the IT department, I was quite encouraged by your earlier slides about what we need to do and how we need to change. And we do need to be more agile, and we do need to be more open-minded. The bimodal model, I think, is something we need to embrace and adopt. I don't think we've got any choice on that if we want to actually continue as a driving force within our sector. I think collaboration is fundamental. We have to collaborate both across our institutions, also with partner organisations where the technology is driving. And also I think we need to mature our organisations. You talked about how we see our businesses, and I don't think the sector yet generally sees itself as a competitive business environment. I'll probably get shot by some of my academic colleagues on that one, but that's my personal view, that we do need to think about how IT supports an organisation. Should it be an enabler, or is that just old hat? Should it actually be looking forward?
I think it should be a driver. I think it's the infrastructure team opportunity to actually show what's possible, to help the businesses focus on what they want to do.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that. Any other questions around that? Jake?
Just like to ask, you talk about a lot of the innovation happening in the cloud, but I'm wondering why the more traditional stuff shouldn't just be shunted out there as well, so payroll, finance, HR.
It is. So I'm certainly seeing, obviously the oracles of this world are definitely doing that anyway. But I think for some applications, I think that would be too hard to move them. I think from the way they've been created, or we've lost the application developer who knew how this thing worked. So actually the risk of doing it might be too much, which is why I think there will be this need to do the both. But I certainly think that some of the larger CRM systems are definitely moving to the cloud at some point, or are being replaced by. So when I talk to some of the finance industries, they see all this Uber and taxi changing and Amazon. I think it's got nothing to do with me. I'm a bank. I am, no one's going to touch me, I'm a bank. And then I showed them this slide of a screenshot of HSBC's website. And then I build up around the edge all these very small startups who were eating their lunch in terms of loans, mortgages. You know, they're piecemeal doing things around the edges. And so I think the large institutions also need to be wary, but if they don't change, then someone else is going to come in and take part of the picture, which ultimately will destroy the whole business. But I think you're talking about collaboration. I think compared to some of the other sectors I speak to, I think you're uniquely, you've got a huge advantage that some of these large institutions don't have. So some of these large institutions I talk to, they don't have the millennials to talk to. So I've got this slide which shows a timeline. So it starts in 1960 and comes up to the modern day. And I gradually build up, you know, when did Facebook come in, when did Twitter come in, when did DevOps as a concept come in. And I get people to plot in their minds when did they go to university or when did they start work. And all of a sudden they realise that the millennials have just lived and breathed this new world ever since they existed. And quite a lot of the larger corporates I talk to don't have a population of people to actually help them work out what good looks like in this new world, whereas you guys, you've got lots of them. In terms of, you know, if you're able to collaborate with those people, they can probably tell you actually what would make a difference in terms of what they need.
Any other questions? There's one over here.
How close do you think we are to having common international standards for providers that are adopted by major manufacturers?
Oh, that's tricky. That's tricky. Don't honestly know. I would think 2 years, 3 years, because I think you're going to have to. I think with this, you know, if you look at the comparisons between the old IP internet world and where we are now, they need to survive, these providers. So I think they're going to have to collaborate. So based on that, I think, what, 2, 3 years? Because, but, you know, we're seeing the same in the Internet of Things. So in other words, all these sensor manufacturers are having to speed up. I'm seeing it in the OIC. You know, they're just having to speed up their processes because, quite frankly, they can't have the elongated standards process that they used to have. They themselves need to change things to be able to be relevant by the time the market's moved on.
I think that's an important point for us to recognise as well, is the relevance of the services that we provide in our institutions today. And are we fast enough? No matter, you know, if there's a fast drive in the technology space, it's going to overlap into our space, and we have to be agile and forward-thinking to be able to benefit in a timely fashion. It's interesting to sort of think about your timeline. If you think about the student journey, potentially 3-year journey, how will technology change in that 3 years? And with the millennials being there, how eager are they to take on board new technology? Quite often we have the inability to change quickly in a technology's perspective for many, many reasons. But is that just an excuse? And should we be trying to find ways of maturing our organisations so we are agile and can keep pace with technology change? Any other questions? Surely somebody on this side wants a question. Steady. If there are no further questions, I'd just like to thank Alison very much for being here today, for opening the keynote speech. We're now going to have a coffee break in the exhibition area. So we'll take that coffee break early, give you a chance to talk to our exhibitors and to our sponsors. So can I ask you for a round of applause for Alison, please?